Why nothing feels right in spirituality anymore, on today's Oblyron Spirituality. Greetings everyone, I'm Oblyron. Thank you for joining me on today's episode where we are going to talk about how nothing feels right on the spiritual levels anymore. How things feel a little bit lost and confused, and some of the ways in which we can remedy this situation. So I took a Chinese philosophy class back in college, and one of the most fascinating things that stuck with me about that class was when we looked at Confucianism and Taoism. Both of those practices had, or I should say, they reflect the environments with which they come from. So Confucianism is a very structured and organized practice which helps us to deal with pretty much life in the city. That's where it evolved. And as we look at, let's say, Taoism, well, Taoism evolved in let's say a more of a rural area where it was a little bit more relaxed, the pace of life was a little bit slower, and that's why, Taoism is the way, the unseen way, or the unspoken way, or the nameless Tao, whatever you want to call it. But it's much more transcendental. And so I'm thinking of the times that we live in, and I'm comparing it to Confucianism and Taoism, and seeing how those are practices of their environment. And I'm noticing that much of what we feel spiritually are also a product of our environment. Okay, so let's take a look at the times that we're living in. They're very uncertain. We have so many people at odds with one another. We can't really see into our future right now. And I think that is also affecting our spiritual awareness as well. And then you have combined with the fact that, let's say, there's just so much out there. I mean, the YouTube of today is completely different than even when I first started posting videos 2 years ago. It just feels like, when you go through your feed, and it's any feed, it doesn't matter if it's YouTube or any other social media, you're just bombarded with all this information, all this stuff coming at you. And then it's like, if you watch one video about this, well, then you're gonna keep on getting a lot more videos related to that. So it's kind of like a situation that psychologists have said when people are at the grocery store and they have too many choices available to them, they kind of shut down. And I think that is what we are seeing in spirituality too, is there's so much information, there's so many choices, and there is also just so much uncertainty that, we're just kind of shutting down. Even in my own practice, there are certain ritualistic things that I do just to kind of keep me in the rhythm of doing certain things. I notice that even with those ritualistic things, sometimes it feels like I'm just going through the motions now. It's like, well, what is the substance and the meaning behind that? And that's also a very natural part of the process too. So think about this. If you've been on, let's say, spiritual YouTube for the past couple of years, or even the past year, and you've been watching all these videos and learning all these techniques and all these different philosophical and spiritual systems, well, guess what? You've been exposed to so much more information than many other people would have been exposed to throughout most of history. And yet our brains were not really designed to process that much information. We kind of want to make sense of things. We kind of want to be able to define our realities. But yet here we have all of these videos about the nature of reality coming to us that we have never really fully processed on a deep soul level. And so it really creates a lot of pathways within us to feel loss. It creates a lot of pathways within us to feel scattered. So all of these are basically signs that we are so wrapped up in our heads right now. We are so wrapped up in our thoughts. And as we look to our thoughts, well, what, on a spiritual level, what element do they come from? It's the element of air. And right now, it's like we're in this tornado vortex of information and thoughts. And so as we feel scattered, as we feel sort of lost in this element of air tornado which is happening to us, a good way to sort of take a step back from that and to get out of that spiral and that cyclone is to connect with different types of elements. So one thing about air is that it is all in our head. It's all about thinking. It's the mental agility and the mental action which we take. But if we get too wrapped up in our heads, then we really need to return back to the earth. We really need to return to the elements which are slower moving. Element of earth, element of water. Deal with let's say the more practical aspects of life and the more emotional aspects of life which keep us rooted. And as we stay rooted and as we connect more with our emotions, then we will find that a lot of that confusion and a lot of that overwhelming feeling of all this coming at us, well, we could process it a little bit better because we don't feel the need to take it all in at once. We don't become overwhelmed. So I'm going to leave it there for now. If you've resonated with today's message, then feel free to leave a like, subscribe, or a comment, and let us all know how you've resonated with today's message. If you're looking to take the conversation further, then feel free to drop by the Discord. The link is in the description. I also post additional content as well as have various other services and activities that I conduct through there as well. So thanks again for watching today's episode. Love and light and wisdom and shadow. And now we shall close with a chant of Oblyron. Amde sote, amde Oblyron, amde sote, amde Oblyron.